a brand new upcoming presentation for Starfield, rumours on the game's preload dates, as well as concerns about reviews. We're going to talk about all of this and much more in this video. I'm Obsidian and let's jump in. So, Microsoft have confirmed that Starfield will be present at this year's Gamescom. The event will be running between the 23rd of August and the 27th. Unfortunately, the game itself is not going to be on the show floor, and do let me know what you think about that in the comments section below. Quite naturally, this has led to some concerns from some quarters. We're going to talk about that in a bit more depth in just a moment. But first, I want to talk about this new presentation. Bethesda have confirmed that this is going to be a theatrical presentation. The bad news for most of us is that it's going to occur behind closed doors. Attendees at Gamescom will be invited into the theatrical presentation, but how many people that is going to be remains to be seen. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, there's a fair few people who are understandably somewhat concerned about how all of this is playing out, and they're concerned for a number of reasons. Firstly, there's no hands-on gameplay at Gamescom, and this is with just a week towards release. Secondly, whilst there is going to be another presentation, it's taking place behind closed doors. Both of these seem to suggest to some people at least that Bethesda have something to hide. So let's think about that a bit and break it down. To start with, this closed door presentation, what could it be? Well, if we look back to Fallout 4, Bethesda did exactly the same there. And this was a live gameplay presentation. Apparently it was entirely unscripted and showed the early segments of the game. Yet despite this taking place behind closed doors, it did leak its way onto the internet, meaning that pretty much everyone got to see it in the end anyway. Now secondly, Fallout 4 never had any hands-on gameplay previews before its launch. Granted, it did launch slightly later in the year, on the 10th of November in fact, and that meant there was no nearby gaming events for people to play it on anyway. But nonetheless, what can we draw from all of this? Well, it turns out there are a couple of parallels there, and these surround the closed doors theoretical presentation. We don't know if Starfield's going to be a gameplay presentation or not, but it seems quite possible that it might be. Secondly, neither Fallout 4 nor Starfield had hands-on gameplay before release. So, does that mean Bethesda are hiding something when it comes to Starfield? Well, not necessarily. In fact, I'd even go as far to say that it seems that Starfield is following Bethesda's playbook almost step by step. At least if we're to compare it to Fallout 4 rather than Fallout 76, and in my opinion it makes far more sense to compare it to Fallout 4, which after all was a single player title, just like Starfield. But that said, I do think all of this serves as a very important reminder that we should all be keeping our expectations very much in check when it comes to this game. As I've said before many times in the past, Bethesda titles do have a tendency to release in a very bugged state. Some of these bugs can be fixed pretty quickly, other bugs can stay around for a very long time indeed. Whilst there's been some rumours that have suggested that Starfield will release in a remarkably good condition, personally I'm fully expecting to see the typical Bethesda bugs. Whichever way it ultimately turns out to be, it is certainly a very divisive subject. Do you think it's going to be full of bugs, or do you think it's going to be a very good launch? Let me know. Right, now I do have my very own personal theory as to why Starfield is not going to be playable at Gamescom. And this all comes down to that initial exposure to the game, that initial first impressions. Think for a moment about Fallout 4 and Fallout 3, as well as Oblivion and Skyrim. There's a moment right near the beginning of these games where you step out into the wide open world, and that moment is massively impactful. In fact, it's perhaps one of the most important moments of the game. And if this gets revealed a little bit too early, it's likely to affect the overall impact that players are going to get from it. So I suspect that's at least a part of the reason as to why Bethesda don't want people to see too much of the game early on. But it's equally possible there could be many other reasons as well. Now, moving on to the subject of Preload. Starfield itself is going to be a massive download at around 125 gigabytes or thereabouts. And for some people, that is going to take a very long time indeed. In fact, before a house move, that would have taken about a day and a half for me to download, so yeah, pretty long. Fortunately, it seems Starfield is going to have a preload phase, meaning that people can download it before the game is released. A recent rumour or speculation, I don't really know how you want to classify this, has suggested that preload phase may well begin on the 9th of August. This was pointed out on Twitter, or I guess I should now call it X, by a user named Idle Sloth. The information itself, the dates specifically, come from Amazon, and you can see them on the page right here. It very clearly points out 9th of August as the preload date. Also, as we can see, this is for the Xbox edition. So likely, or possible perhaps, that this date, if it's true, only applies to the Xbox and Microsoft stores. Meanwhile, the Steam preload could potentially have entirely different days. Either way, if these dates turn out to be true, then yeah, the preload phase is pretty lengthy indeed, giving people plenty of time to get that game downloaded. Also, one other thing, whilst we're on the subject of different stores, I wanted to mention that Microsoft have confirmed that Starfield is going to be a Play Anywhere title. That means if you buy it on any Xbox or Microsoft store, you'll get both platforms for a single price. So if you buy a copy of it on Xbox, you'll also get a PC copy. If you buy a PC copy, you'll also get an Xbox copy. Additionally, the game will feature cross-saves, meaning that you'll be able to continue your progress on regardless of the platform you're playing on. Now, the other subject I want to talk about is the subject of reviews. This is an area where people are again getting a little bit concerned. Starfield is going to be a very big game and is likely going to take a huge amount of time to review. If rumours are to be believed, however, some people have been playing Starfield for quite a while now. This came up again pretty recently on the Kind of Funny Games podcast, but it was also reported on a few weeks ago, around about the 27th of July, by a few gaming press. And that is, yes, some people do appear to be having hands-on with Starfield right now. What we don't know is if this group comprises of people who are simply close to Bethesda, whether it's big gaming press websites or if it's large-name content creators. Either way, it wouldn't be unheard of or unusual for people to have early access to the game, and this might not necessarily be for reviews but could be for simple feedback purposes. Either way, Starfield is very likely going to be a huge game to review, not too unlike what we've seen very recently with Baldur's Gate 3 and a lot of gaming sites having reviews ongoing, meaning that the game is just too big to review in, well, a short space of time. Now, the fact that the press didn't have enough time to fully review Baldur's Gate 3 before it was released, well, that wasn't a bad sign. And I suspect it's not going to be a bad sign for Starfield either, at least not that in and of itself. Ultimately then, I guess how you feel about this will really depend upon how important you feel that reviews are. The final piece of information I want to talk about here then is the ongoing marketing for the game. Very recently, Samsung have started announcing Starfield-related information, stating that the game is going to be playable on their latest TVs without a console. So yeah, cloud gaming. This isn't something I want to focus on too deeply at the moment, it's just something I wanted to point out as, well, it's kind of interested in the context of Starfield-related news. And that brings us to the end of this video. If you found it interesting or helpful, please do check out the video description where you can find links to Patreon if you feel you'd like to support or help out. It's massively appreciated and really does help make this channel what it is. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.